Hi friends, I tried first to climb Everest in 2014, and that year was a major avalanche and 16 people died about 300 meters away from our tent. And since then and before that, I've done many adventures and I've learned a lot of good things from these adventures. Eventually, I finally climbed Everest in 2019, 5 years later. But today I'm going to share with you stories and events and ideas from these adventures which have helped me in life and business. I want to be very clear that this talk is not about Everest or mountaineering or adventures. It's about how we deal with these challenges in a day-to-day situation, work, personal, relationships, whatever. The principles remain really the same. And the lessons that we will share today, I've just done a book called The 7 Lessons from Everest. Out of that, 3 lessons are really relevant to our theme of today, which is surviving the storm. And I'm going to share with you only these 3 lessons with the help of some slides, which will help you to kind of, put them into a context. But again, this is not about Everest. This is not about what happens on Everest. I want you to relate these constantly to what you feel in your daily lives, in any challenges that you face, in any storms. Now, storm is obviously a metaphor for various things that happen around us. And in the context of Everest, fitness is again something which is a 360 degrees concept. It's not something which is just related to physical fitness. It is to do with an overall 360 degree concept of what fitness is. It's emotional intelligence, it's mental toughness, it's a lot else, a lot more than just physical fitness. So similarly, when we are all dealing with our challenges, you must have your own metaphorical Everest that you are climbing. You may have passions and hobbies and things. So let's go and share my 3 lessons. And I, again, just please relate them to everything that you are doing. And eventually you will see that they will apply to every single situation that we face. And let me share with you some of these lessons with the help of the slides that I have selected for you. So this is the view of the final part of the summit climb of Everest, the Cornice. It's called the Cornice Traverse. You can see the people, you can also see the crowding. That year was to 2019 was kind of infamous for some of the crowds. But let's get down to the lessons. The first lesson that I want to share with you about dealing with tough situations and the storms, etc., is what I call make friends with fear. Now, what do I mean by it? What do I mean make friends with fear? I get this asked many times. Were you not afraid? Were you not scared at Everest? Of course I was afraid. Of course I was scared. And I think it is a healthy thing if we have some insecurities and they help us to prepare in a more robust manner. This whole thing is not about not being afraid. It is about acknowledging what is there to be afraid of and preparing for them in the right way. So that's what I mean by making friends with fear. I'll share with you some anecdotes. This is the Khumbu ice fall. This is the first part of the climb right after Everest base camp. And as you can see, it is a dangerous place. It is called the Killer Khumbu. These are just large apartment-sized blocks of ice. They can move. As I said, I've seen an avalanche on it in 2014, people dying there. And in 2015, actually, there was an earthquake on Everest. And then again, hundreds of people actually died in that area. So this is the Khumbu ice fall, and see what happens next. This is a helicopter rescuing people from Camp 1, which is after the Khumbu ice fall on Everest. Now, what happens there is that after the first night of the climb, the first time people go over the Khumbu ice fall, between 15 and 20% people actually give up on the expedition. It's tragic because they prepared very hard. They paid a serious amount of money for this, all 100% advance. But still, first time you go over the Khumbu ice fall and you want to go back home. You may be sick, you may be other things, but I think a very important factor is that if you fail to make friends with the fears of climbing the Everest and dealing with Khumbu ice fall, you will have these issues. This is another image that I want to share with you as an anecdote. This is Camp 4. The yellow group of tents is Camp 4, which is the highest camp. It's called the Death Zone. It's 8,000 meters in altitude. And the mountain visible is the 4th highest mountain. I've taken this picture while coming down from the summit. A lucky shot. The clouds cleared only momentarily. We reached here on the 19th of May and we were supposed to climb that night. But it was so stormy, that we had to take the call to not go out that night. So now we have an extra night to spend in the death zone. How is that even possible? It's highly not recommended. But we had carried extra oxygen cylinders with us for the purpose that if there is a rescue need, if there is some sort of a thing, because you choose to be afraid of certain things and you prepare for those things, when those things happen, they may not happen, but if they happen, then you made friends with that fear by preparing for that and not getting scared of that. This is another story of the night of the climb itself. This is a night shot of the, this spot is called the balcony. If some people are familiar with Everest or have read about it, this is the first spot where we changed the first oxygen cylinder. It comes up after about 6 hours of climbing from Camp 4. And you can see the headlights going up. I was concerned about getting frostbites during my climb that night. And I consulted, because I was afraid, I consulted senior mountaineers. I took some tips and I applied those tips. And based on that, I was the only one who did not get frostbites that night from our group. My other partners had to be hospitalized in Kathmandu when they got back from the Everest. So my lesson is very clear that if I acknowledge the fears and I prepare for them, I'm in a much better situation to face the storms when they come in. My lesson number 2 is the next part of the same story, because there are some known risks, but there also are unknown unknowns, which is what I call expect to deal with the unexpected. This is an image of an avalanche coming into Camp 1. I was just having my lunch, and there are many avalanches there. There are many things that are happening. The idea is that we cannot predict everything and every situation, no matter how hard we prepare, no matter how good we are at planning. But what is unexpected, there cannot be a plan B, because you don't know what will hit you. So it boils down to how you look at things. And that is a factor of what your expectation sets are. So if I'm expecting to deal with some unexpected things, and then certain things go wrong or some shocking events happen, but I'm already prepared, then I'm not panicking. I'm dealing with the problem, and I'm not dealing with the frustration of that problem coming on to me, because there was always going to be, in my mind, there was always going to be something. Look at these stories. This is a spot on the Khumbu, the first night of the climb. My whole of my left leg went through the ice into the freezing water below, right into my mountaineering boots. I was completely soaked in icy water. It's minus 25 degrees outside, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then eventually me and my Sherpa had to go back to base camp. We could not carry on with our team. And the next following day, we sort of, caught up with them at Camp 1. I mean, there is another story here, which is where my oxygen leak happened. This is right near Camp 4. The peak on the left is Mount Everest itself. And the winds that take that famous plume of Everest, you can see this is some clouds and a lot of snow flying off the Everest. So we were climbing and we kind of getting next to the Camp 4 and about 45 minutes to camp. And I'm suddenly thinking that it's becoming very hard for me to walk. And I looked at my pressure gauge, no more oxygen. My Sherpa had already gone ahead to help with the camp. And I said, I can go alone, but I had these issues. Now, if you are not prepared to deal with certain unexpected events, such kind of things can completely throw you off. And if you begin to panic, I mean, having a calm mind is your most potent, weapon in your arsenal to deal with these things. This is an image on the way back. We had a whole situation where my Sherpa actually left me and I came back the last 6 hours alone. That week when we were climbing, 12 people died on the Everest. Our main guide and leader actually abandoned the group one day before our summit climb. So when we went up from our Camp 4, from a summit camp, we had to go out only with the junior Sherpas. And the junior Sherpa also quit me at this point, where you can see it's vertical, steep drop down. This is my boot in the picture. And this was a spot where there was a steep drop and a rock wall ahead of this, which you can't see in this picture. And also what you can't see is the situation. We've been going 18 hours. It took us 13 hours to reach the summit, 11 hours to come back. This is at a point where, you know, you've done 18 hours and now you have half a bottle of oxygen left, little bit of water, no food, and now no Sherpa. So these kind of things are examples which happen on Everest, but things have happened on other trips, and they happen in business, they happen in your careers. I mean, we've been hit with this whole coronavirus. I mean, how much more unexpected can something be? Like, you have an unimaginable situation occurring in the world within the last 1 year. So expecting to deal with the unexpected and having the ability to focus on what we need to do is really a big part of my learnings in dealing with storms. Now I want to come to the lesson number 3, my last lesson of this group, and then we just talk about it a little bit. This is obviously, so we've seen the first two. The first one is to do with things that you can kind of predict and may happen and you can prepare for them. The next one is stuff that you can't predict, but you should still expect that things will happen. I expect them all the time in everything that I do. So when they happen, then I'm like, okay, this is the problem. Let's just deal with it. Let's not get too excited or too much in panic about it. The third lesson, eventually after all of those things, is that our action really depends on where we are focusing. So there are always going to be negatives and positives. When we are crossing these ladders in the ice fall, you know, this is a bottomless crevasse. And to the left and the right, it's like, if you make a mistake, Everest doesn't give you second chances. But there is that rung, there is that little thin aluminum rung. If I look only there and I place my foot only there, then I'll be stable. There are many spots in Everest where you are like, your passage is 6 inches, 9 inches wide, and you have like steep drops to the left and to the right. But if I can only focus, if my focus is so sharp on the opportunity that I don't get worried about the threats, if your focus is so sharp on what you need to do and what can be done, and you don't want to be worried about what can go wrong, then things actually get done. I have seen it time and time again. You will also see it time and time again. If you just review the situations where you actually passed and you did not, you will see the difference. Imagine this situation. Look at my face here. This is 11 hours into the climb. Even my eyelashes have ice. And this view, this Cornish traverse is not visible to you from the whole path. There is a spot called the South Summit, and you reach that and this whole view suddenly comes up to you. Now my focus is what? My focus is to get through this. And I'm not going to be, we don't want to be, these things happen. These things, even though you know that this will happen, this view will come up, but even then when it comes in, right in your face after 11 hours of mountaineering, you know, you are tired, you are exhausted, you are literally almost collapsing, you're hungry, all kinds of things. But this has to be dealt with. The summit is not that far, but it's not that near either. So these kind of events, storms, metaphorical storms, if you like, they depend on our focus. Our focus is basically guides what happens. This is my own picture that I've taken, and you know, I've just put up some clips from the newspaper. We saw traffic jams. This is Hillary Step, which is like the last hurdle before the summit. And what is not in the picture is that it's minus 35 and we are at nearly 9,000 meters. So when you are just standing there, you're getting cold. Your oxygen is flowing. You're worried about getting back because all the accidents are happening on the way back. But eventually, if my focus is just on getting things done, there's just one rope. This one rope is taking people in both directions. You'll feel like, is this really Mount Everest? But it is. And you are into the fray, you are in your final stages, you can't be looking left and right, you have to be focused on the job. And if you are, there is nothing that can stop you from achieving what you are out there to achieve. I'm just doing this recap on the slideshow and then we'll just do a recap again. I am calling this thriving in the storm. I'm not going to say just about surviving. I have a problem actually with this whole survival mentality. Why should we be surviving only? Why should we be doing minimal required? You know, storms are almost like an evolutionary cleanup. They help us to eliminate certain competition. They help us to eliminate certain weaknesses. So thriving in the storm, only 3 principles. And if I can leave you with these ideas today, I think it would be worth having this conversation with you. Make friends with fear, expect to deal with the unexpected, and use the power of focus. So this was my 3 lessons. Now let me stop the sharing and get back to you on the screen. Friends, you cannot fake it on Everest. You cannot fake it on any major project in life. The value of the setbacks that happen during these projects is essentially that they let you see what you lack. If you make it, you make it. If you don't make it, you have a better chance the next time. And what goes on Everest also is a process, for example, of acclimatization. We start with the base camp, and first we go up to camp 1, 20,000 feet. We spend a night there, come back. Then the next time we go to camp 2, then go back all the way to base camp. Each time you're pushing the envelope of your comfort zone. This whole idea of how you expand your comfort zone, the whole interpretation of what is a storm and what is an opportunity completely changes by the process of acclimatization. On Everest and in life, you have to keep on expanding that whole zone in which you are comfortable. I am inviting you to consider that if someone like me, a regular guy, businessman, 50 years old, no fitness freak, no nothing, if I can reach the summit of Mount Everest, it's a 45-day expedition. A lot of edgy situations occur. A lot of learnings occur. I've tried to share some of my learnings with you today, and I invite you to climb any Everest that you want to climb. Thank you.